Bulking. Tremendous value for women, but most women do it wrong. Watch this.
Our first caller is Arison from Wisconsin.
Hey, Arison, how can we help you?
Hey, so I just want to start off by sharing I really appreciate not only the much needed, honest, and nuanced information you guys provide, but also the personal way in which you present it. I've learned so much and gotten a lot of laughs, especially in the early episodes.
I remember you. You've been to the studio before.
I have, yep. I came to the live event in December.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, good deal. Well, cool. How can we help you?
So I tend to get distracted on details, so I'm going to start with the question, and then I'll give the details after. I'm wondering how you would program training and nutrition throughout the year if you try to peak at the same time annually to kind of see the progress that you're making year over year. So I'm not a competitor. I never plan to become one, but I do like to have a plan for throughout the year so that on 4th of July, I can kind of look my best, bringing a new, better and better physique every year, just like you would do for a show. So it's a way to see my progress year over year instead of just focusing on a small window of time or just focusing on the scale or smaller metrics. But I feel like I end up in the same spot every year. So I'm wondering if I just need to change it up. I usually build from September to about April, cut in May and June, and then just kind of maintain throughout the summer. Programming has been all my apps programs for about the last year and a half. I hit 10K steps per day, and I adding a 3-mile run on NFL Sundays, thanks to Adam's tip on getting movement in before the games start and just maintaining some baseline cardio. So I'm wondering what you would recommend to do differently.
Yeah, this is actually a really good question. Are you? How long have you been exercising consistently? Period. So I know you said MAPS for the past year and a half, but were you working out a lot before that too?
Yeah, so I've always been generally active, playing sports and just getting movement in. But in terms of hitting the gym like 5 days a week, every single week, it's been about 3 years.
Okay, you're pretty fit, and you've been doing this for a long time. So to see lots of progress year over year, I want to make sure you have realistic expectations, because most of the progress someone's going to make when they start working out pretty consistently will happen in the first 2 or 3 years. After that, the progress is quite incremental. Now, strategy-wise, with what you're doing with your diet, where you're saying you're trying to build, let me see, from September to April, and then you cut May and June, and then you maintain. I like that. So I'm assuming you're going on a bulk or a small bulk during those build phases, and then the cut is obviously when you cut your calories, and then you bring them up a little bit to maintain for a couple months. Is that accurate?
Yep. So I maintain about 2,400. Thanks to you guys, I've come up from about 1,500 to 2,400 for maintenance. So I tend to go up to about 2,600 to bulk, and then I cut down to about 2,000 or 2,100.
Okay, cool. And then when you say peak and be your best, are you talking about athletic performance, or I'm assuming you're talking about how you look, like the visual part?
Aesthetics.
More aesthetics, yeah.
Okay. So diet-wise, on point. I like that. And we can get into more details with that in here in just a second. When it comes to the training, it doesn't make that big of a difference, except I would say the programming that you would want closer to the 4th of July, which is when you're trying to peak, I think should be more of a bodybuilding focused, maybe bring up weak body parts type of routine. So like MAPS aesthetic, MAPS split, MAPS symmetry would even be good leading up to that, just so that, because in order to peak, especially after a certain period of time, you've been training for a long time, initial stages, you just want to develop your body overall. After a while, if you look at, because I think the athlete that you can look at for the most wisdom on this, and I don't think you should do everything that they do, but the athlete that is most comparable is the bodybuilder that competes, let's say, 1 or 2 times a year. And what bodybuilders do is after a while, in order to improve their bodies, they stop trying to build everything all the time, because you're not going to do that. After a few years of being consistent, you're not going to keep building the whole body. But what they do, the smart ones, is they find areas of the body to focus on and bring up those weaker areas. And the way to do that is by taking volume away from other parts of your body. So the way to improve for the first 3 years, general strength, general muscle, general fitness. But then after that, it's really about finding those areas of your body you really want to focus on, placing more emphasis on those and taking away from other areas to compensate type of deal. So the training leading up to that doesn't make a huge difference. But then when you get closer to that reveal, I like a program like maybe MAPS Aesthetic with the focus sessions, for example, to really focus and hone in on some of those areas that maybe year after year you want to kind of work on. And you could pick the same areas or focus on different areas each time.
That's exactly how I do it. I would work backwards, right? So if the, let's say, 4th of July was the weekend I'm trying to peak for, I would work it backwards. So I'd run MAPS Aesthetic leading up to that. So it ended on that day, right? And then the program before that, I like something that is either strength-based or functional. So, and then the rest of the year, it would look something like this. And you can pick and choose between all of our programs. Is I would run things like MAPS Anabolic / strong / powerlift, with interrupting that with like a MAPS Performance. So I address mobility stuff like flip-flopping it. So like what a year would look like would be like MAPS Anabolic, then MAPS Performance, then say MAPS Strong, then like a MAPS Performance, then like a MAPS Powerlift, then like a MAPS Aesthetic, something like that. Where I'm trying to build strength, and then throughout that whole year, to Sal's point about addressing like how bodybuilders kind of address this, is even when I'm going through MAPS Performance, MAPS Strong, these other programs that aren't necessarily for the peak or the show, I'm still trying to address my imbalances or my lagging body parts per se. So I'm going to slightly customize MAPS Strong, slightly customize MAPS Anabolic, or like for example in MAPS Anabolic, my trigger sessions are going to be focused on my weak areas, right? So throughout the year, I'm going to be kind of addressing those weak areas consistently, just by making sure I put a little more focus on that. But I would alternate programs from a strength-based program with a more functional-based program, leading all the way up until I hit MAPS Aesthetic for the final 12 weeks going into my peak, something like that. And then within the program, as far as diet is concerned, I would be in a maintenance surplus for most of the time, and then I would interrupt it with a 1 to 2, maybe 3 week cut sometimes, then back into a bulk / maintenance. The only time that I would run a longer cut would be for MAPS Aesthetic heading into when I'm trying to peak.
Now, Arison, what does your body weight and body fat percentage at the end of that bulk season, and then what body fat percentage and body weight are you typically hitting come 4th of July? I want to see what the difference is.
It normally doesn't change much. Usually at the end of the bulk, it's about 26, 27% at like 115. And then during the cut, usually gets down to about 23, 24% at about 110.
Okay. I would like to see you bulk a little bit more aggressively, is what I'd like to see. Let's see if we can, and you can let the body fat climb up a little more, but really push the calories and get as strong as possible. I would focus on a lot of strength in that period. And then as far as the cut is concerned, this is going to be a 2-year process. The first time around, I wouldn't try to be as aggressive as maybe getting down to 23%, but then the following year, you can go ahead and go for it. And that'll give you a little bit of space to gain some muscle, because that's really what we're looking at here. What we're really looking at here, Arison, is there's 2 ways you can change your appearance come 4th of July. 1, get leaner than you did the year before, which you could do, but once you start to get to low 20s, high teens, it starts to get a bit gnarly. Or 2, what I think, which would be a better approach, is to put on a little bit muscle that sticks around when you get into the cut. So you might have to stretch this out for a couple years to kind of make that happen. How tall are you?
I'm about 5'4".
Okay. And how's your strength? How's like your squat and deadlift? I mean, give me an idea of where you're sitting.
So I just finished power lifts last week. So my 1 rep max turned out to be 180 for squat and dead and 115 for bench.
Yeah, not bad at all. But yeah, I would be more aggressive during the bulk for strength. Now, don't be crazy and sloppy with it, but maybe take your calories and your protein up a little bit higher and see if you could get those numbers to go up. And really, that's where you're going to get. So when it comes to like bodybuilding, for example, the big mistake I think most bodybuilders make or competitors make is they think it's all about the pre-contest. But really, if you're too aggressive with the pre-contest, then you really screw yourself. Most of the best competitors, the people who do the best, are the ones that are really consistent in the off-season, where they build quality muscle and they're able to keep it when they go through that cut kind of phase. And again, I'm referring to bodybuilders because that's the most similar to what you're looking to do. So I would maybe be a little bit more aggressive with the bulk and see if we can get you even stronger than you've been in the past. And if you can progress each bulking season over the previous bulking season, then you're doing pretty damn well. Then you're trending upward.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, normally in the fall, I've been running like MAPS Cardio or MAPS Performance because I have those runs in there as well. I mean, it's once a week, so it's not all that much. And then I've been doing kind of a strength-based program winter and early spring, and then cutting. So I think I'll just switch it around and focus a little more on building.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah, and it sounds like you can push the calories a little more than you have in the past. I mean, which is great because it's not normally the advice that we're giving people. Most people tend to do the sloppy bulk or they overconsume. It seems like you're probably on the lighter side. I mean, if you're only fluctuating 5 to 10 pounds in the entire year, a difference of off season and peaking, that's very minimal. So you could afford to probably, which maybe the most challenging part might be the psychological part, right? When you're going through the bulk
Right.
and you know you're in a surplus, is you're probably going to put on a little bit of body fat, you're going to put on some weight on the scale, is being okay with that, like, and knowing that, hey, that's the goal right now. The goal right now is to build strength. I'm going to increase a little bit of size, not a big deal. So then you can then reveal it in your cut. But if you never really push that or get to build that muscle up, then and you just keep coming back to a cut. And by the way, this happens to a lot of competitors. Like one of the things I share with the guys all the time, I would recognize really quick with my peers is they get to a place with their body and then they go through this bulk and then cut season just to reveal the same physique. And a lot of that is because they would go too aggressively with the bulk. They're not focusing on their programming, wasn't dialed in. So a lot of this is like you making sure that in the off season, you do a really good job of building as much muscle as you possibly can. When it comes down to the MAPS aesthetic, to the cut part, you're just revealing the hard work you did in the off season. There's nothing really you're doing at that point in a calorie deficit. You're really just revealing what you did in the off season. And if you don't allow yourself to push your weight up a little bit more and put on muscle, you're going to be revealing the same physique every year.
Yeah.
It seems like based off of what you guys are recommending that there's kind of a basis of a formula leading up to the peaking part, but there's a lot of flexibility for you sort of like in the preceding months to experiment with a lot of different programs that are going to address like a lot of different moves you probably haven't done, a lot of different muscles that we're kind of trying to highlight. So I think that, you could really like experiment and see whatever, sort of option that's available makes sense for you kind of in maybe the winter months and, focus on strength and, obviously feed yourself to that point where we're trying to build muscle, but then the reveal itself is probably where you're going to want to stick something kind of like a formula.
Yeah. I'll look, I'm going to add a few things here. One is that your year-long approach is excellent because what you're doing, whether you realize it or not, is you're creating kind of this lifelong balanced strength training routine by switching to different programs, by slightly changing your goal from mobility to strength to getting leaner to stamina. This is great because this type of training is going to serve you very well for the rest of your life. It's going to avoid a lot of the pitfalls a lot of people fall into, like overuse injuries or imbalances. It's going to allow you to continue to slowly progress because you're going to be bringing up, weak areas or areas of your body or performance that maybe other people might not focus on because they're so single-minded. So that's excellent. The second thing I'd like to add is to be patient and enjoy the process because if you're young, so you can still do this, but what you don't want to do is keep pushing the visual appearance every single year because it's going to take away the real value of what you're doing, which is the entire process of the whole year of going through these different phases. And I'm sure you're enjoying training different ways and focusing on different things, whether it be strength or mobility or stamina. So I would focus more on that. And also, performance improvements, although those are not infinite either, are better metrics than visual ones anyway. I mean, if you get really lean, you could have like a day where you're just off with your hormones or you're bloated and you might not look as good as you did the year before, even though you have a little bit more muscle and you're probably leaner. So I like performance, for that standpoint. And the last thing I'll add is this. This is very true. This is true for both men and women, but especially for women. When women have a good amount of muscle on their body, they look better at higher body fat percentages than women with less muscle. So you'll see a woman who's got good strength be 28% body fat, and she looks leaner than a woman with way less muscle who's at 23% body fat because the muscle adds shape and sculpt. And so what ends up happening is the 28% body fat percentage woman with more muscle just looks like she's got really nice curves. So keep that in mind when you're doing your bulk. I wouldn't get too hung up on the body fat percentage. We don't want to go crazy, but get stronger, build that muscle. That's where you're going to see the progress.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it has been helpful. Like powerlift was just a really great mental shift in terms of I've never really tried to do 1 rep max before.
Awesome.
So that was just kind of fun. And performance, I mean, I play volleyball once a week, and admittedly, it's beach volleyball in a men's net, so I'm useless at hitting. But on the rare occasion that I get to try, it was really fun to improve my vertical and that kind of thing, just as a side effect.
Awesome. Do you have MAPS Anabolic Advanced, by the way?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you have all of our programs?
Pretty much.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go.
We gotta get you a new one here.
Yeah. Well, we
We'll
got
work
some.
on it.
We got something coming out. If
Yeah.
you can remember when we come out, we'll give it to you. We'll say I want to send you something. So
Yeah.
Okay,
I
thank
can't
you
say-
so much.
can't
Thanks.
say what it is though. It's a surprise, but you'll like
Fair
it.
enough.
Thanks, Harrison.
Thank you.
You got it. That's a good approach. That's a great
I love it.
approach.
Yeah.
I mean, she's shifting through different modalities and goals, and I think that's a great long-term approach to fitness because a lot of people would just be so hyper focused on one thing that everything they do is towards that, and they end up getting hurt or they end up burning their bodies out. But what she's doing, she's cycling through all the different programs and changing your nutrition by seasons. That's a great way to keep yourself healthy.
Yeah, I was thinking too, like Symmetry is a great program for kind of like going back and it's sort of your North Star. Like how's my body been benefiting from this? Maybe where there are some deficits that I can focus in on and kind of iron those out along this journey because she's going to be applying new programming like each year. It sounds like at least one to try it out and see how her body responds. And I would think that's always a good follow up right after that to kind of see
Totally.
where you're at.
Yeah, after listening to her and giving all that advice that we gave, I think it's a simpler way to kind of sum it all up to me after hearing everything is she does a great job already cycling through programs, cycling through diet. She keeps herself in a very manageable place. I think actually she just hasn't allowed herself to put more weight on.
Yeah.
And I think just doing
That's why I said the bulk.
Yeah,
So,
just doing that alone, I think, is going to give her this, a better reveal the next year of going through this. I think everything else she's doing is pretty spot on. I just know sometimes I have clients that struggle with they got themselves in a good. And by the way, too, there's nothing wrong with just staying there. But if you ask me a question like, "Hey, I'm trying to improve,
progress,
progress and move my physique," then you're going to get advice that way. I think that she's got a very healthy relationship with exercise. She looks really good. But I mean, you ask me a question like that, I'm going to go, "Okay, well, here's how
look,
we go about it."
Two biggest mistakes with bulking is the person who's insecure about being too skinny, they overbulk. And the person who's insecure about being too fat, they underbulk.
Yeah.
There is a nice sweet spot with the bulk. And if you're going below or above it, you're just not going to reap all those benefits. And it sounds like she was just going
Agreed.
too low.